I think you all are hear me, madam.
Yes, Avishkar.
Uh, Thank you, sir. Uh, very good afternoon and warmly welcome to everyone who has joined us today for this special session on research proposal development. It is our pleasure to have with us the distinguished guest, Mr. Dilan Ratnayake, a senior lecturer at Jayawardhanapura University of Sri Lanka. Mr. Ratnayake is an accomplished academic with a wealth of knowledge and experience in this field of research. He holds an MBA from the Postgraduate Institute of Management of University of Sri Lanka, Sri Jayawardhanapura. Uh, we are honored to have Mr. Ratnayake here to share his insight and experience on the development of research proposal. His guidance and monitorship will undoubtedly prove invaluable to all of us as we strive and enhance our research skills and capabilities. To all participants, I extend my warmest welcome and appreciation of taking the time to attend this session. You present here today reflect commitment, academic growth and development, and I commend you dedicate to learning. Encourage all of you to full advantage of this opportunity to learn from Mr. Ratnayake's experience and you may have. Let's us make the most of this session and work together to advance our research capability. Thank you, and once again, a warm welcome to Ilan Ratnayak.
Thank you, I think, Avishkar. Thank you for the nice introduction. I hope you all can hear me well enough. I should thank the department for contacting me and giving this opportunity. It was a short notice, but I was very pleased to take this opportunity to share my experience with you about the research and especially how to develop a research proposal. Let me share my screen. It's great to see a lot of students. I didn't expect this kind of a crowd audience, which is great. Okay. Can you all see my screen? I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to share my experience. This is not going to be sort of a teaching lesson. I'm going to share whatever I have learned throughout my journey. I was once a student just like you. I did my dissertation. I did another dissertation, a thesis for my master's. Now I'm doing another thesis for my PhD. So I have a lot of things to share that I've come across. I made so many things in right way, in wrong way when it comes to research. So what I'm going to do here today is just give certain things that I expect you would find useful, especially as undergraduates who are about to do a research. Might be your first time doing a research, which is kind of a very important scholarly work. And there are certain important aspects of research that you need to know, which are very special because the research is kind of a highly academic piece of work. In that case, there are different aspects which are quite unique to the field of research that you should know and that you should apply when it comes to research. So it's going to be experience sharing session from my end. And at any point you can disturb me. Just raise your hand or just use the chat function. If you have any question, if you need any clarification regarding something, if you want me to explain in Sinhala, unfortunately, I don't know any other language. So if you want me to explain something in Sinhalese, I can do that. So just feel free. This is not a lecture. It's more like a experience sharing session. So don't take it serious. Okay. So yesterday when Rohini madam contacted me and asked me to deliver the session, she wanted me to give you an idea about how to develop a research proposal. The proposal development for me is one of the most important phases of any kind of a research. It might be an undergraduate dissertation, it can be a master's research, a PhD if you want to pursue higher education in your future. And if you want to, let's say, apply for some research grants, the key to approach a successful research is the development of a proper research proposal. This is something like kind of a tool that you are going to use in order to convey your ideas to the wide audience. So this is about me. Just to introduce, I'm a lecturer at the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Currently, I'm doing my higher studies in Scotland. Got my first degree and the master's degree from the Jayewardenepura University, and postgraduate certificate in research methods from the Strathclyde University. I just wanted to let you know my research interest, my passion. Of course, I'm not an experienced researcher. I would see myself as a very apprentice researcher, but my interest is mostly about the digital culture, digital consumer culture. I'm investigating the digital consumer culture, including the social media influencers, and how the audience engage with social media influencers kind of stuff. And in terms of research methods, I'm more into, I used to be a quantitative researcher, but now I've moved into mixed methods, and especially I'm using this new types of digital methods in my research, like the network analysis and sentiment analysis. Okay, that's about me. The research proposal, once you hear the word, you might have the idea, but I would like to start with your words. What it means to you when it comes to this word research proposal. ඔගොල්ලන්ට මොකක්ද හිතෙන research proposal එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන ප්‍රශ්නය අහුවෙන්නේ. Can you just type something in the chat area so that I can see for you what is a research proposal? Just type in the chat. And don't worry, there are no right and wrong answers. Okay, the way of conduct our research work. Good, very good. Any other answers? If you want to unmute and say it out loud, that's fine too. Okay, just one answer. I expected more from the Rajarata marketing. Okay, fine. Let's move on. Research proposal is kind of a roadmap. It's a plan. This is something you develop before you start the real research work. I would say this is a preliminary work, research before research, I would say, or the roadmap or your plan as to how you are going to conduct your research. It's simple as that. It gives kind of a snapshot to the audience, to the person who is going to review your work. It shows what you are going to do, what kind of a research problem that you are going to address in your research. And it shows why it is important to your discipline and how you will conduct your research. Say, there is a good answer, late one, but it's a good answer. Creation of new knowledge and how to use the existing knowledge. Perfect. A document proposing of the research project. Very good. So yes, your answers are correct. It's a for me, it addresses these basic concepts: what, why, and how. It basically shows what you are going to investigate. What is your main research problem? For example, someone might be interested in understanding how the emotional brand attachment affects the repeat purchase intention or brand loyalty. That is what you say that this is that I'm going to investigate in my research. This is my problem. And why it is important. It's not just what you're going to investigate. You should explain why it is important to understand this problem, do a research regarding this. For example, you can do, let's say, research about anything, literally anything in this world. The relationship between the tidal waves in the sea and the number of students in the Rajarata University. Kaurarik research කරන්න පුළුවන්. මූදර ඇල්ල අඩු වෙන එකයි රජරට යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ ළමයි ගාන අඩු වැඩි වෙන එකයි ගැන රිසර්ච් එක. You can do something like that, which is quite funny. But the problem is the why question. Is it important to do such kind of a research? No. In your case, in your research, someone in the audience, maybe your examiners might ask why this is important. I may research it. For that, you need to have an answer with your line marketing discipline, I guess. So within this marketing discipline or within the sub-discipline of branding, consumer research, digital marketing, or any other sub-discipline within the main marketing discipline. For this reason, it is important to understand this research problem. And solving this research problem would help the practitioners, help the academics to advance the theory. There need to be a justification. And the next question is, most importantly, how you are going to conduct the research. That is the method. Research is a scientific process. It's not an ad hoc process. Humbling සිද්ධ වෙන ක්‍රියාවලියක් නෙමෙයි research කියන්නේ scientific process එකක්. It has certain steps to follow, and there should be this scientific rigor in each and every step that you are going to do, starting from the concept development, like the research problem identification, doing literature review, developing your model if you are doing a quantitative research, the way you collect data, number of respondents, how you are going to analyze your research. Everything should have a justification, a clear scientific methodological rigor, so that no one can challenge your findings. That is what you call how. You need to show the method of doing the research. So in simple terms, it's very basic. The proposal is a plan for your research that you intend to conduct. Why this is important for you? I hope you all are getting ready to develop a research proposal for the undergraduate research project. And just think about your audience. The main audience of your research would be your lecturers, your examiners, right? And this is an assessment, an examination. At the end of this research, you will get some marks, a grade, which affects your academic performance to your class of your degree. And so it's really important that you place them, the examiners. You need to show them that you understand what research is. And you know the first impression is the last impression. For a research proposal is the first impression. You need to show your commitment, your understanding, and your ability to do a proper research, a scientific research at the very first phase of your research, which is the research proposal. That's why you need to put your maximum effort in developing the best of the best in the research proposal. And in case of the research proposal, you need to consider the relevance. You need to make sure that your audience, your examiners understand why this research proposal is relevant to the discipline. As we are in marketing, your examiner should know, once they read the research proposal, they should know that this research problem is really relevant to the context of marketing, to the marketing discipline. And the context, like the marketing context in Sri Lanka, let's say, or South Asia, or the marketing context in a specific industry, like the apparel industry. There are so many industries which are struggling these days after the pandemic and the economic recession. So within those contexts, why it is important to understand this thing. And the approach, how we are going to do the research, the methods, what I said previously, and then the feasibility. It's very important that they understand you can do the research. This is something we have seen when we look at the research proposals produced by the students. They propose so many things which seem not to be feasible within the given time frame, within the given resources. You may suggest that you are going to collect data from 5,000 people, which is not possible, isn't it? ඔගලන්ට තියෙන කාල සීමාව ඇතුලේ 5000කින් data collect කරනවා කියන්නේ කරන්න අමාරු වෙනක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Interviewing top 25 managers in the country might be quite difficult. Like top most companies managers ලාගෙන් වෙලාවක් ගන්න එක මාස දෙක තුනක් ඇතුළත feasible නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So make it feasible, the research project, but big enough, not too narrow. So explaining it a bit further, in your research, I believe you need to cover these 3 W's. The first is what? Very importantly, what you're going to address in your research, which is the research problem. The gap in the knowledge, that's what you call the research problem. Gap in the knowledge, the difference between what is known and what is not known. There is a difference between existing body of knowledge and the expected body of knowledge. That is kind of a gap. You need to clearly identify a gap in terms of the scientific writing, which is the previously published research papers. I'll come to the research problem later on. And you need to include the research aim, the purpose of your research, what you are going to achieve after the research, and the specific research questions. Usually what we do is we take a broader research problem and break it down into specific research questions, which can be converted into research problems that can be linked to data and validate. I'll come to that point again later. And the second W is why. In your research proposal, you need to explain the rationale of your research. why you do this research. Say, we have seen this, some of you might be presenting your research in the symposium once you're done with the research with good grading. One major question people would ask, or the audience would ask from you, is why you did this research. Is there something new? Is there something important to the industry, to the practitioners, managers, to academics? Why this research is important? You need to explain that in your research proposal. And this can be done in terms of different types of research gaps, like empirical gap. This research might be important because it's something new to this context. For example, there can be some studies done in the developed countries. But it might be different when it comes to the global south or developing countries like Sri Lanka. Then you can build the argument this has been done in the developed countries, but it might be different in countries like Sri Lanka or India because we have cultural differences. That's an empirical gap. And there can be theoretical or practical significance gap, like gap in the theory. There is this theory, but that theory is not advanced enough to understand the specific situation. Theory එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ theory එක අපිට අදාළ situation එක problem එකට අදාළව ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න ප්‍රමාණවත් මදි. ඒක නිසා මම theory එක තව ටිකක් develop කරනවා. That's another significance, a gap. And the practical significance, of course, as marketers, what you are going to find through the research must be important for the practitioners like managers, decision makers in businesses, or anyone, or even academics to do further research. And the next one is how we are going to do the research, which includes the research design. You need to have a separate section for research methodology in your research proposal. There you need to outline the plan of your research, the research design. Whether your research is going to be a quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method research, and why it becomes qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. And you need to explain each and every method that you are going to use. Your population, your sample, your data sampling technique, your data collection method, what instruments that you are going to use for the data collection, how you are going to analyze your data, which method, which tool or technique that you are going to use, with justifications. This is very important. We have seen so many proposals, research proposals developed by students where they have given a very less weight, I would say, for the research method section. It's just one paragraph. I wouldn't mind if it is being shorter, but there are no justifications. Let's say they say we go for a simple random sampling and we use correlation or regression for the data analysis. Someone like me, I would ask why and how. කොහොමද simple random sampling කරන්නේ? Is it possible to go for simple random sampling? Why not another sampling technique? Why not another data analysis method? You need to have a justification. You need to make references to previous research, most importantly, methodology books. You can make references to methodology books and come up with a justification, which is very, very important. And finally, you need to include the time plan. You have a very limited time to do your research, so you need to explain how you're going to complete it within the given time frame. Okay, are we clear up to now? Do you have any question? Just the approach. Okay, so this is a simple process that I would follow when developing my research proposal. There is another process that I have seen. A different process. මේ process එකට අමතරව වෙන process එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි කලින් දැකලා තියෙනවා. That process involves just 2 steps. The first step is copy. The second step is paste. Copy and paste. Don't do that. ඔගලන්ට exam එක pass වෙන්න ඕන නම් research එක pass වෙන්න ඕන නම් copy paste කරන්න එපා. That wouldn't do your research, and all of your lecturers, your examiners are well experienced researchers. They have done the research, they have examined previous studies, previous dissertations. At the first glance, we can identify if this is a copy paste or not. Make a copy paste එකක්ද කියන එක බැලු බැලමට කියන්න පුළුවන්. That's a skill researchers usually develop. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් research කරනකොට ඒ skill එක develop වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා copy paste කරන්න එපා. This is a very good opportunity because doing a genuine research is very, very important when it comes to the industry. ඔගොල්ලෝ academics ලා වෙන්න පුළුවන් අනාගතේ. නමුත් ඔගොල්ලෝ industry එකට දවසක ගියාම ඔයගලන්ට තේරෙයි research එකක් කරනවා කියන එක කොයිතරම් unique skill එකක්ද කියලා. Usually, majority of the people in the corporate sector, they do not have this rigorous research skills. මේ scientific research process එක ගොඩක් අය දන්නේ නෑ. ඒ experience එක නෑ. ඒකාන්ත මේ golden opportunity එක නාස්ති කරගන්න එපා. copy paste කරන්න කියලා ලකුණුත් නැති කරගෙන experience එකක් නැති කරගන්න එපා. Okay, keeping that apart. This is the usual process I would go through. First, I would start with generating research ideas. You need to think about what I am going to do the research. I'll give you one example. When I was planning to do my master's research, මට තියෙනවා නිකන් අර පොඩි අමාරුවක් ටිකක් වෙනස් research කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා පොඩි අමාරුවක් තියෙනවා නිකන් සරලව කියනවා. So I was thinking about what to do for my research. I wasn't interested in mainstream marketing concepts. I just wanted to see how the ethical consumer behavior works in practice. And I was looking into different things. Like I was reading some articles about the ethical consumer behavior, so many journal papers, and then I developed few ideas. I had like one idea about ethical behavior within the sustainable development, like the green products and everything. Then I got another idea about the ethical behavior and the religion. We call ourselves as, so-called a religious country, but there are so many unethical consumer behaviors. That's another idea. So likewise, I came up with different ideas. Then in the second stage, I started scrutinizing these ideas. මේවයින් මට මොකද්ද කරන්න පුළුවන් කරන්න බැරි දේවල් කියන එක තෝර බේර ගන්න ඕනේ. So I just found some articles, went through them. Then I finally decided what is important for me, and what seems to be very interesting is how the religiosity of people, religious commitment of people affects the ethical beliefs. When scrutinizing your research ideas, this is very important. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් research ideas අපිට ගොඩක් develop කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒකට අපේ කැමැත්තත් බලපානවා. නමුත් ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ හැම එකකටම research එකක් කරන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right? For several reasons. The first thing is those concepts might be too broad, too vague. ගොඩක් broad නිසා research එක කරන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Then another reason might be your capabilities as a researcher. Say, for example, some of the research studies might require a qualitative investigation. I didn't know much about the qualitative research when I was an undergraduate. So by that time, I couldn't go for a qualitative research. So I had to opt it out. Some of the studies might require access to data. Some specific data to access on and access නැති තැන්වල. So we have to remove them as well. So it's more like narrowing down it to a specific research gap which you have an interest and which you can practically do your research on. That is what you call scrutinizing. And then once you have an idea about what you're going to do, then you should start drafting the proposal. Don't wait for the last minute. අන්තිම මොහොත වෙනකන් ඉන්න එපා. මොකද මං දන්න තරමින් ලෝකෙ ඉන්න කිසිම එක්ස්පීරියන්ස්ම සීනියර්ම ප්‍රොෆෙසර් කෙනෙකුට උනත් එක දවසින් one time proposal එකක් develop කරන්න බෑ. You come up with a draft, you change it, go again, review and revise. Then you come up with the perfect research proposal which is polished enough. Okay, before going to the next step, I have a question. Can you explain the difference between empirical gap and the practical gap? It's an interesting question. For me, this is my understanding. The empirical gap is always related to the context. There are different contexts. For example, the developed world is one context and the developing world is another context. The behavior among men is one context. The community among women is another context. The community within the university is one context. Community within the school or community within the prison is another context. The empirical gap comes with the application of research within each of these contexts. Say, I'll give you an example. What I'm seeing here, hearing here, might be completely different when it comes to the Sri Lankan context. මෙහි ඉන්නකොට අපි දකිනවා how people engage with the technology. අලුත්ම ෆෝන් එක ආවන් පස්සේ අපි දකිනවා ගොඩක් අය ඔන්න අලුත් මොඩල් එක ආවම අලුත් මොඩල් එකට යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒව පාවිච්චි කරන විදිය, ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික වේස්ට් ඩිස්පෝස් කරන විදිය, කොයිතරම් ඉක්මනට ලැප්ටොප් එකක් ෆෝන් එකක් විසි කරලා දානවද? It's a certain behavior. But it is not the same in Sri Lanka. මෙහි අයට සාපේක්ෂව අපි එච්චර ඉක්මනට ෆෝන් එකක් ලැප්ටොප් එකක් විසි කරන්නේ නැහැ. repair කොච්චර repair කරනවද? repair කරලා පාවිච්චි කරනවද? reuse කරනවද? So that difference is what you call the empirical gap. And the practical gap is all about the practice, how you are going to make decisions based on your research findings. This is specifically for the practitioners, say marketing managers. How marketing managers, for example, marketing managers might not know how to use the hashtag networks. This is something that I'm doing now. කොහොමද අපි ගත්තොත් hashtag පාවිච්චි කරාම Instagram එකේ Twitter එකේ අපි නොදැනුවත්වම ලොකු network එකකට අපි සම්බන්ධ වෙනවා. hashtag network එකකට. ඒක හරියම technical දෙයක්. marketing manager කෙනෙක් දන්නේ නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන් කොහොමද මේ network එකට access කරලා ඒක through customers ලගේ insights හොයාගන්නේ කියන එක. That gap is what you call a practical gap. The same thing can be empirical and practical gap as well. So these are like more fluid concepts. Hope I gave the answer. Okay. So that's it. The research proposal is more like a mini research. You need to do a research before research. You need to research to find out what you are going to do the research about. අපි research එක කරන්න කලින් mini research එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ අපේ research එක මොකක්ද කියලා හොයාගන්න. And from which sources you can find out the research ideas. Number one is academic journals. That's the top priority because your work, your research is going to be an academic work. ඔගොල්ලෝ මේ produce කරන research එක dissertation එක කියලා කියන්නේ it's highly academic, a scientific work. So the first thing you need to look at should be academic journals. You might have access through the university, maybe Emerald. I'm not sure if you have access to Scopus or any other database, but at least you have the Google Scholar. You can go to Google Scholar and start searching whatever you want, what you have in your mind, using different keywords. It's very important. Use different keywords to search. Like my research is about social media influencers. Then I use different keywords. Like I search for influencers, I search for social media influencers, Instagram influencers, Twitter influencers, influencer celebrities. Like using different keywords will give you different search results. And some of you might be using some other access routes like Sci-Hub, which is not, I don't know, ethical or legal, but I've seen people use it. Okay, there is a question, the difference between empirical and practical gap. Just remind me, I'll do it at the end of the session. Okay, then the second one is you can look into industry reports, follow recent trends. This is again important. You might see certain things. News newspapers industry reports මොනා හරි දැක්කොත් ඔයගොල්ලෝ දකින්න පුළුවන් මොනා හරි trends ඒ කියන්නේ සමහර industry එක වැටෙනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන් සමහර interesting area එකක මිනිස්සු product එක ගන්න නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒ වගේ මොනා හරි interesting දෙයක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට note වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Then what you can do is you can take that idea, go to academic journals and see how they have been interpreted and researched about by previous researchers. So it's more like that kind of a process here and there. අපි industry reports වලින් හෝ වෙන තැනකින් මොන හරි දෙයක් දැක්කොත් අපි ආපහු ගිහිල්ලා බලනවා මේක ගැන කොහොමද research කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. And then another method would be observations or interviews. මම කලින් කිව්වාගේ අපි දකින්න දෙයකින් research idea එකක් එන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම if you have discussions with experienced researchers ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ lecturers ලාත් එක්ක කතා කරනකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්න පුළුවන් මෙන්න මේ areas අලුතෙන් එන recent trends කියලා. දැන් ඒක නිසා කියලා lecturers ලා හම්බෙන්න එපා හැමෝම. Might be a lecturer, might be your friends, senior colleagues, ඕන කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. And this is, some of you might be familiar with this, but I'll just give you the idea. When developing the research idea, it's important that, okay, there is another question. Can you suggest more websites to access to more articles? All right, this is a problem we do have in our country. අපිට එච්චර සල්ලි නැති රටක් නිසා කට්ටියට විනාශ කරන්න සල්ලි තිබුණාට වැදගත් දේවල් වලට සල්ලි නැති නිසා මම හිතන්නේ අපිට limited access එකක් තියෙන databases වලට. By the time I was leaving, we had access to Emerald in my university. I think Emerald was available for all the universities. I'm not sure about now, but beyond that, I say you can use the Google Scholar. And other than that, I'll just remind me at the end of the session. I'll let you know once the recording is off. Okay, so use keywords, different keywords. For example, if you are interested in doing the branding research, use different keywords to search for what you are interested in. Brand loyalty, brand loyalty, and this one. So use that kind of different keywords and use supportive tools. I'll show you supportive tools in a minute. Narrow it down. Always try to narrow down your research into very small, manageable level. අපිට ලෝක වෙනස් කරන research එකක් කරන්න බෑ. So we do a small research which is manageable, but which is important, significant enough. Always try to narrow it down. And then try to find review articles. I'll come to that point as well. And consider your methodological preference. I'm not sure if you have, I don't know, it depends on your courses, but just think if you can handle a qualitative research, mixed method research or experiment research. If you don't have those specific skills, let's say experiment එකක් කරන්න නම් එහෙම නැත්නම් qualitative research එකක් කරන්න නම් අපිට ඒකට අදාළ specific skills තියෙනවා. If you don't possess those skills, then you will have to select a research area which is compatible with your research methodological skills. Quantitative research and area focus on quantitative studies. When you are looking for articles, look for the methods too. Okay, I'll show you a couple of stuff which you might find useful. Let me. The first thing is the type of articles. You just go and search, let's say Google Scholar. Google Scholar එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ research එක ගැන මොන හරි search කරන්න. You can see my screen, right? Okay. Let's say I'm interested in examining emotional brand attachment. When developing a research proposal, just search using different keywords and see which papers are mostly cited. You can see the number of citations over here. And this shows the academic reputation of the specific article. මේ article එකේ reputation එක කොච්චරද කියලා එක indicator එකක් තමයි මේකෙන් කියන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ වැඩි දෙනෙක් මේක ආපහු cite කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ මේක key article එක. It's very important when developing the research, identify, let's say, 5 to 10 key articles in your area. ඔගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ branding research එකක්ද, celebrity research එකක්ද, social media, digital marketing research එකක්ද? ඒ එක එක field එකේ key articles 5ක් 10ක් අඳුර ගන්න. ගොඩාක් හැමෝම වගේ cite කරලා තියෙනවා. Then include them into your research. ඒකෙන් පෙන්න ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ research එකේ quality එක, because you are taking the base of these high quality studies. So, and once you click this, you can see the other studies. අනිත් research මේ paper එක cite කරපු අනිත් research බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. That's one way you can keep your search query in a specific line of research. ඒකෙන් අපිට අදාළ research බලන්න පුළුවන්. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you might come up with this type of papers. There are different types of research papers. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි දකින්නේ empirical papers කියන එක. ඒ කියන්නේ research එක literature review කළා, data collect කළා, data analysis කළා, findings present කරන research තමයි ගොඩක් research papers අපි දකින්නේ. But there are other types of papers. I wanted to highlight these review papers. Review papers කියලා කියන්නේ literature review එක. Now this paper is a review paper, literature review regarding the influencers, social media influencers, and how they become celebrities. These review papers do not have a data analysis part. The review papers or data analysis part එකක් නැහැ. What they have done is like they have reviewed the literature and finally provided some research directions, like provide some directions for future research. They suggest something like this. Okay, so far this has been done in this research area, but future researchers can do something like this. And that is a gap. එතනින් පෙන්නන්නේ gap එකක්. මේගොල්ලෝ කරලා තියෙන්නේ මේ දැනට මෙන්න මේ දේවල් කරලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මෙන්න මේක කියලා නැහැ කියලා පෙන්නන එක. ඒ කරලා නැහැ කියන දේ research gap එකක්, which can be a very good starting point for your research. So if you come across anything like that, then just do not avoid that kind of review papers. Another question, is this called a meta-analysis? Well, there are different approaches to develop research review papers. Meta-analysis is a specific analysis method. Review paper එකක් කරනකොට meta-analysis කියලා කියන්නේ follow කරන එක method එකක් විතරයි. ඊට අමතරව වෙන තව analytical methods පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් concept paper එක එහෙම නැත්නම් review paper එකක් develop කරද්දී. So meta-analysis is a specific method. Okay, that's the first one. And the second thing is you can use some online tools to support your search. Key articles මොනවාද කියලා අඳුර ගන්න ඕනේ කියලා මම කියුනේ. ඒ key articles 5ක් 10ක් අඳුර ගන්න අපිට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් tools කීපයක් තියෙනවා. If you sorry, I'll just in my slideshow you can see on the right side I have put some snapshots of online tools that you can use to search the links between papers. Some of them are not in operation now, but the websites like Connected Papers and Litmaps are still in there, still in operation. I'll show you how it works. Now, this is the website. This is the website called Connected Papers. I'll show you from the beginning. If you go to this website, connectedpapers.com, there is one paper I would see about social media influencers. This one, micro, macro, and mega influencers. It is a key paper in the area of influencer categorization. You just need to copy and paste, or just type in the name of the research paper and click this build graph. It identifies the paper. Once you click it, this is the outcome. මේ වගේ ලස්සන map එකක් එනවා. මේක පෙන්නනවා මොන මොන papers ද මේ research paper එකත් එක්ක connect වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. You can see it gives information, the title, the authors, the published year. Then you can see this paper is similar, like similar papers. මම හිතන්නේ මේ වගේ දෙයකින් ඇති ඔයගලන්ට research proposal එකක් develop කරන්න basic idea එකක් ගන්න. So yes, you can use this type of tools as well. All right. That's the first part I wanted to cover. Do you have any questions? Is it all clear? මම මෙච්චර ඇයි research proposal එකක් වැදගත් වෙන්නේ කියන එක. Okay, then I'll go through the structure. Okay, this can you explain again that tool? I'll show this to you. මේකට කියන්නේ Connected Papers, connectedpapers.com. There is another website called Litmap. Lit means like literature review, literature. මේකෙන් කරන්නේ අපිට මොකක් හරි paper එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ paper එකට සම්බන්ධයි හා similar ඒකට connect වෙලා තියෙන අනිකුත් research papers මොනවාද කියලා අඳුර ගන්න try එකක් දෙනවා. දැන් chance එකක් දෙනවා. අපි scholar එකේ search කරාට මෙහෙම connected papers මේ වගේ easily පෙන්නන්නේ නැහැ. cite කරපු papers විතරයි පෙන්නන්නේ. නමුත් අපි හිතමු මම මේ පෙන්නේ connected papers එකේ කොහොමද paper එකක් search කරන්න කියලා. simple මම search කරා මට ඕන paper එකේ මගේ ළඟ දැන්ට paper එකක් තියෙනවා. මම ඒකේ නම search කරා. search කරාම මේ map එකේ පෙන්නන්නේ මේ මේ nodes වලින් පෙන්නන්නේ මම search කරු paper එකත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙලා තියෙන අනිකුත් papers. අනිකුත් research papers. ඔයගොල්ලන්ට බැලුවොත් මේකේ right side එකේ මම මේ mouse cursor එක ගෙනියනකොට පෙන්නනවා මොනවාද papers වල නම් කියලා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ බැලුවොත් මේ හැම එකක්ම social media influencers ලා ගැන කතා කරපු papers. ඒ වගේම තමයි මේ බලන්න color එකෙන් පෙන්නන්නේ time එක 2019 ඉඳන් 2023 වෙනකම් ඊට කලින් ඉඳන් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. recent papers හොයා ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ micro macro and mega influencers and make original paper. It was මේ වගේ එකක් social media influencers influencer marketing, a systematic review, integrated framework and future research agenda. මේක හොඳ paper එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මට research එකට base එක හදාගන්න. මේක links පෙන්නනවා open කරගන්න Google Scholar එකේ DOI publishers page එක. මේ වගේ options ගොඩක් තියෙනවා ඉතින් මේකේ. life එක lazy කරගන්න පුළුවන් tool එකක්. Okay, I'll just quickly go through now the structure of the research proposal. I should say something. There is no universally accepted structure for the research proposal. මේක තමයි හරි proposal structure එක කියලා එහෙම එකක් නැහැ. My advice is possibly your department or your faculty or the university might have given you a specific structure for the proposal. If you have been given such a structure by the department, follow that structure. Department taking structure එකක් දීලා තියෙනවා මේ structure එක follow කරන්න. That's number one. And what I'm going to do now is just to cover and explain the key elements. සාමාන්‍ය research proposal එකක තියෙන key elements ටික විතරක් මම cover කරන්න. So in a general research proposal, you need to have a very strong title, a section for the introduction or background, section for the research problem, research questions and objectives, a brief literature review, the proposed methodology, significance of the research, timeline, and the references. Okay, the first thing is the title. That is the first impression of your proposal. Don't make it too complicated. Have a very clear, concise, nice, catchy title. But that title should capture the essence of the proposed study. Now, on the right-hand side, I've just put an example. This is one of the papers I published in Emerald Journal, Marketing Intelligence and Planning. I used a very simple title, Gen Y Consumers Brand Loyalty, Brand Romance Perspective. That's it. It's very short, very clear, and it captures the essence. I hope so. Once you go through the title, you see it's about Generation Y, it's about brand loyalty, and from the brand romance perspective. That's it. Short and sweet. And make sure that you use important keywords within the title that captures the essence of your research. Research එකේ fundamentals, basics වලට අදාළව keywords පාවිච්චි කරන්න මතක තියාගන්න title එකට. And then the first section of your proposal should be either introduction or background. It's more or less it's just the same. It's a matter of using the word. So this is the section where you answer the question, so what? ඕන කෙනෙක් අහන්න පුළුවන් දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ research එක ගැන කිව්වොත් I'm doing this kind of research. So the person who is listening might ask, so what? ඉතින් මොකද කියලා අහන්න පුළුවන්. For that, you need to have an answer that is the rationale of your research. Why this topic is important, why this topic is interesting, why further research is needed within this context, within this situation, you need to build up that context, the base of your research in this introduction section. So I'll give you an example. In the previous research I showed you, research check generation Y consumers like brand loyalty. Research check smartphone industry again. In the introduction, I explained why the smartphone industry is important, how the smartphone consumption is growing up, and why it is important in the context of Sri Lanka, within the South Asian context. Samaning technology adoption එක අතරින් ලංකාව ඉන්නේ අනිත් South Asian රටවල් වල ගොඩක් උඩින්. So that's very important. And why generation Y, among other generations, the generation Y shows some kind of a different consumption behaviors. So it is important to understand why they become loyal to certain smartphone brands. So you need to build up that background to show why this topic is an interesting topic. And you need to show what is already known about the specific research area. In that case, I explained what is known about Generation Y consumers' loyalty. So you just say this has been investigated. මෙන්න මේ දේවල් මේ research area එක කරලා තියෙනවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ digital marketing or social media marketing ගැන research එකක් කරනවා නම් influencers ලා ගැන research එකක් කරනවා නම් කියන්න පුළුවන් influencers ලා Instagram influencers ලා ගැන මෙන්න මේ research දැනට කරලා තියෙනවා. You just acknowledge that before you come into the research problem where you explain what has not been done. Research problem එකට එනකොට research problem එකේදී ඔයගොල්ලෝ explain කරනවා what has not been done. So should be clear for you now. Introduction එකේදී අපි context එක පැහැදිලි කරලා ඇයි මේ research area එක interesting කියන එක පැහැදිලි කරලා අපි කියනවා what has been already done. අපි එතනින් connect කරනවා research problem එක, the next section where you explain what is missing in the current literature, what has not been done. If you look at the example, this is an extract from a paper that I published with my supervisors in the Advances of Consumer Research. In this paper, you can see first we say this research is about consumer tribes on Instagram. So we say like, okay, consumer tribes has been a interesting research area for a while, and aspects of consumer tribes such as members, value co-creation, liquid entrepreneurship have all been considered in this field. I think the applicant consumer tribes sambandhen research pela තියෙනවා. Then look at the part that I have highlighted. You say, however, these authors, this is 2020, which is recent, they emphasize that the existing literature does not provide the full understanding of the dynamics of tribal constitution, reconstitution, so and so. මේ දේවල් වෙලා තිබුණාට මෙන්න මේ දේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් රිසර්ච් වෙලා නැහැ. ඒක අපිට හිතෙන දේ නෙමෙයි, අපි කියන්නේ ලිටරචර් වලින් සජෙස්ට් කරන දේ. Recent papers, this is very important when proposing your research problem, developing a research problem, make citations to the recent articles as much as possible. 2001 2002 publish කරපු එකක් අරගෙන කියන්න එපා මෙන්න මේක සම්බන්ධයෙන් research වෙලා නැහැ කියලා. මොකද අවුරුදු 23 22ක් විතර research අනිවාර්යෙන් වෙලා තියෙනවා. So when developing the background and especially the research problem, make references to recent articles. අඩුම තරමේ පහුගිය අවුරුදු 3-4 ඇතුළත publish වෙච්ච articles පාවිච්චි කරන්න research problem එක develop කරගන්නකොට. So we say this has been done, give references, but this has not been done, give the reference, give more references, and suggest that it is important to understand this one. That's simply how you develop a research problem. This is very, very important. What we have seen before in many cases that students do not follow this really well. ඒක අවංකව කියන්න ඕන දෙයක්. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි දකින්නේ. This is something I have seen, observed. Research එක කිව්වහම කොහොම හරි මේක පාස් වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. Some of the students we have seen, they just take a paper, find a paper. එක paper එකක් හොයා ගන්නවා. They call it a base paper or something. Then they are going to replicate it. Exactly the same study, they are going to replicate it. Paper එක අරගෙන ඒ paper එකේ තියෙන එක එහෙමම replicate කරනවා research එකට. That is not a research, because it's a replication. කලින් කරලා තියෙන research එකක් ඕගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා රජරට යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ එහෙම නැත්නම් අපේ ජයවර්ධන යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ කරනවා. What's the point? කරපු research එකක් ආපහු කරන්න ඕනේ නෑ. We already know that. In research problem, make sure that the research problem is original, what you are doing. මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ නිකන් rocket science එහෙම නැත්නම් ලෝකෙ වෙනස් කරන research එක නෙමෙයි කරන්න ඕනේ. But just add something to the existing knowledge. In the research problem, identify a gap. Gap එකක් අතුරු ගන්න. Try to see what has been done and see what has not been done. ඔගොල්ලෝ මොකක් හරි model එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. paper එකක තියෙන අපි හිතමු technology acceptance model. Fine. Just take it. But do not replicate. Go through recent papers and see what they have suggested for the future researchers. What you can do is when you are reading research papers, just pay an extra attention to these final sections. Possibly most of the research are separate section for the future research directions. Separate section එකක් නැති වුණත්, if you can see over here, මෙන්න මේ part එක ගත්තොත් මෙතන පල්ලෙහාට these authors discuss what can be done by the future researchers. This is where you can identify a research gap. මේ paper එකේ කියනවා අපි මෙන්න මේ දේවල් කරා, but ඉස්සරහට කරන research වලදී මෙන්න මේ දේවල් අලුතෙන් add කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. Fine, you can do that. That is a small addition to what the other researchers have done previously. And that gives you the novelty for your research, which is really important. I've been in the symposium, Rajarata University, the student symposium. I have seen students presenting their research, which is good. But one of the main questions the panel members ask from almost all the students is like, what is the novelty of this research? මොකක්ද මේ research එකේ තියෙන novelty එක? ඔය අලුතෙන් මොනවද add කරන්නේ? And to be honest, some of the students, they did not have an answer because it's a replication of a previous study. But if you do something like this, future research section එක බලලා ඒකෙන් add කරන්න පුළුවන් අලුතෙන් දෙයක් අරගෙන ඒකත් ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ model එකට add කරොත් then you have an answer. කවුරු රැවටින් මොකද්ද ඔයාගේ research එකේ තියෙන novelty කියලා? Yes, I have added this variable to the model. It's a novelty. ඔයගොල්ලෝ quantitative research එකක් නම් කරන්නේ. මේ වගේ literature වලින් suggest කරපු අලුත් variable එකක් හෝ variable කීපයක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ research framework එකට add කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්, එහෙම නැත්නම් relationship වල වෙනසක් suggest කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්, moderate එකක්, mediate එකක්, interaction එකක් introduce කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්, that's a novelty. At least one variable, two variable, assuming that most of you are doing quantitative studies. So do something like that. This is very important. ඔයගොල්ලෝ research papers කියවනකොට අන්තිමට තියෙන future research suggestion section එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම බලන්න. ඒකෙන් දෙයක් අලුතෙන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ research එකට add කරන්න. And that is something you call a theoretical gap. gap in the theory. You have the theory, but there is something to be added further to the theory. That is called the theoretical gap. And in research, you can suggest empirical gaps as well. It has been done in one context, but it should be validated in this context. But empirical gap alone is not enough for a research. Quality research එකක් වෙන්න empirical gap එකක් විතරක් තියෙන එක මදි. So in research problem, make sure that you develop the argument from what is known to what is unknown. දැනට දන්නේ මොනවද අපි research මේ area එකේ research සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැනට නොදන්නේ මොකක්ද? එතනින් මම මොකක්ද add කරන්න යන්නේ. So this is very, very, very important. මේ මුළු presentation එකේම මට highlight කරන්න ඕන ප්‍රධානතම දේ තමයි මේක. Have an interesting novel research gap. Do not copy and paste or do not replicate the previous studies. ඒක කරන්න එපා. ඒක ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් විදිහට කළ යුතු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. සහ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට හොඳ ග්‍රේඩ් එකකට කවදාවත් යන්න බෑ ඒ වගේ දෙයක් කරලා. Okay, once you are done with the research problem, then you need to break it down to specific research questions. Research questions usually pinpoints exactly what you want to find out in your research, and objectives describe what you are going to achieve. So in general, the research questions are converted into research objectives. I'll show you an example. And these research questions should be focused on a single research problem. It should be researchable, feasible window, research check කරන්න. Data collect කරගෙන අදාළ time එක ඇතුලේ කරන්න පුළුවන් window. Should be very specific. Usually we don't use broad, vague research questions, but it shouldn't be too narrow. It should be complex enough to do a research and should be relevant. අපි marketing කරන විදිහට අපි ඉතින් zoology research objectives questions හදලා වැඩක් නෑ. Should be relevant. So this is an example, like one research question. This is from my research paper I showed previously. What is the impact of emotional brand attachment on smartphone brand loyalty? So it's very clear, very specific. The independent is emotional brand attachment and the dependent is smartphone brand loyalty. And I convert it into the objective to investigate the impact of emotional brand attachment on smartphone brand loyalty. It's quite simple. So research questions and objectives should be connected well and they should be specific. Research question එකම තමයි අපි two form එකට ගෙනල්ලා objective එකක් විදියට set කරා. So that should be the next section, the third section of your research proposal. Then the next section should be the literature review. මේක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි දකින තව දෙයක්. When it comes to literature review, we see the copy and paste. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි දකින්නේ repeating what previous studies have done. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි දකිනවා එක්ක copy paste කරනවා කලින් article වලින් copy paste කරලා ගන්නවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් paraphrase කරලා දානවා. What exactly is literature review? Literature review එකදී අපි කරන්නේ definitions provide කරන එකද? No. The literature review is an argument. It is the core of your research. You need to show the theoretical side of your review. For example, in my case, that previous paper, I take the brand romance as a theory. Then, in literature review, I need to define the concept and I need to show how familiar I am with the brand romance concept. And then you need to show what theoretical foundation you are going to use. Are there any frameworks or variables that I should consider within this model? In that case, I had to consider pleasure, arousal, and dominance. I had to define them and explained how they have been used in previous researchers. It's more like comparing and contrast, being critical. සමහරලාවට අපි කියනවා මෙයා මෙහෙම කියලා තියෙනවා නමුත් මෙයා තව කෙනෙක් වෙන දෙයක් කියලා තියෙනවා තව එක්කෙනෙක් වෙනම දෙයක් කියලා තියෙනවා ඒක නිසා මම මගේ අදහස අනුව මෙන්න මෙහෙම දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් මේ හැම එකක්ම සින්තසයිස් කරනවා. So in literature review there should be others voice as well as your voice. You need to be critical, compare and contrast different sources and build up the argument. More importantly, it should not be a repetition of what others have done. It's not literature review. It's not literature review. The review should be a review. There's a question about the PowerPoint slide. Yes, I'll share it with you. So the review should be comparing and contrasting. What are the main theories? If you have different theories, just identify them and explain these theories have been used. These methods have been used. And these researchers do not agree with these researchers. They have been dominant and others have been dominant, less dominant. Build that comparison. And being critical, you can criticize previous studies as well. You just say these authors have done these type of studies regarding social media influencers, but it has these drawbacks, these issues. It gives a foundation for your research as well. And then you need to see exactly where your research is going to fit in within this broad literature domain. මේ type එකේ research වෙලා තියෙන social media influencers ගැන ඒ අතර මගේ research එක contribute කරන්නේ මෙන්න මේ theory area එක. That should be explicit. Okay. And the next section of your proposal should be the methodology. You need to explain the research design. Where you describe overall approach and practical steps you are going to take to answer your research questions. So this is all about how you are going to do the research, how all the steps should be well explained and justified. මේ section එකට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට references පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට methodology books වලින්. I'm sure you might be familiar with, maybe I don't know what recommended text you are reading, but marketing research by Malhotra and Dash, or business research methods by Uma Sekharan. There can be other reference books as well. Use those methodology books as references and explain alternatives and your selection. You should definitely include these three aspects. The first is research type. If your research is qualitative, quantitative, or a mixed method research, and why. Say your research attempts to investigate the relationship between variables, and that cannot be done in qualitative research. It should be a quantitative research. Give the justification. Because of the nature of the variables, it should be examined quantitatively. Give the reference, Malhotra and Dash, 2006, so and so. And what type of data are required, primary data or secondary data. As marketing people, we use primary data, but I don't know, maybe someone can do research by analyzing secondary data. It depends. And the research design, your oral research design, if it is a descriptive research, correlational research, mixed method research, you need to explain that as well. And the second is you need to explain specific methods like how you are going to collect data. Is it going to be survey, interviews, and data collection instrument? Are you going to use a questionnaire, interview guide, online questionnaire, or in-person questionnaire? Everything should be explained and justified. And data analysis methods. Is it going to be correlation, regression, structural equation modeling? And more importantly, the why. Why these are the best methods for your study. In methodology section, you need to show that these options are available for the data collection, for the analysis. But for my research, I'm selecting this method for the data collection, this method for the data analysis, because it is the most appropriate method for this type of a research. Give a reference. That's how you make your research, the method section, solid, and you bring the scientific rigor. අපි කියන scientific document එක කියලා මුලින්ම කියන research proposal එක අපි මේක scientific document එකක් බවට පත් කරන්නේ එහෙමයි. You cannot include whatever you think in the research proposal. It should be justified by the scientific elements of knowledge. කලින් කරපු research or methodology books වගේ දේවල් වලින් අපි ඒවා justify කරන්න ඕන. Okay, and next is you need to bit explain the practical aspects as well. The time constraint. When you are going to do the data collection, when you are going to do the analysis, and when the time plan, and how you are going to gain the access to the respondents. If it is general consumers, of course, that's fine. Samanya consumer, but if you have a specific target group, then you need to explain how you are going to gain access to the respondents. For example, I have a colleague with me who's from your department, and she's doing the research about her research takes the respondents, the people who are having this, who are the victims of this, the kidney diseases. So she need to explain how she is gaining the access to those who are having the kidney issues. You need to explain that in your method. All right. After the method section, you need to include another section for the significance of the study or potential implications of the study. This section explains why your research is necessary and how your findings will be valuable. Who is going to use your research? There can be theoretical significance for your research, like how you are going to advance or challenge the existing theories. Let's say you are going to add another variable to the model. You are taking technology acceptance model, you are going to introduce new moderators or mediators to the model, which is something new. That's a theoretical significance. And more importantly, you need to explain why your research findings are important for the practitioners, the practical value, how marketing managers or marketing practitioners can use your research findings for strategy development, strategy implementation, whatever. The contribution to the practice, it should be explained. So these are the general sections, and finally you need to include a timeline. Maybe you have a semester or 1 year, 2 semesters to complete the research study. Something like a Gantt chart, develop a Gantt chart and show how we are going to implement each stage of the research: proposal development, literature review, data collection, data analysis, findings chapter, revising the project research thesis. Have that timeline. And finally, references. This is again something we have seen. Some of the students, they are very negligent about the references. It's very important. Make a scientific document. One way of making it a correct scientific document is having right references. Because in research, we deal with so many other sources. And it is really, really important that we acknowledge the others' contribution, others' work, give the credit. වෙන අය කරපු දේවල් අපිට අපේ වගේ කියන්න බැරි නිසා තමයි අපි reference එකක් දෙන්නේ. reference එකක් දීලා කියනවා මේගොල්ලෝ තමයි මෙහෙම කියලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. In doing so, you need to follow the recommended referencing style. I don't know which referencing style you are using. It can be the Harvard or APA, whatever. Just spend some time. Harvard hari APA hari website එකට ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න කොහොමද හරියට referencing දාන්නේ කියන එක. And then do not leave the citations until the last minute. අන්තිම මොහොත වෙනකන් ඉන්න එපා citations දාන්න. ඔයගොල්ලෝ draft කරන ගමම citation එකක් දාගෙන යන්න. reference list එකකට add කරගන්න. Usually what I do is I just use these referencing tools. එහෙම නැත්නම් referencing වලට ගොඩාක් වෙලා යනවා අපි ඒක manual කරනවා. The first option is you're using Words. If you're using Words, Microsoft Words, it has a referencing tool. Microsoft Word වල referencing tool එකක් තියෙනවා වෙනම tab එකක් තියෙනවා. Once you go through an article, if you're using that article for your research, you can sort of type in the details of the article, the authors, article name, journal name, page numbers, volume, etc. And then you can just click and insert citation while you are writing. And automatically the reference list will be updated at the end of the document. Document එක අන්තිමට automatic reference list එක update වෙනවා අපිට manually හදන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. Alternatively, you can go for some freely available referencing tools. One of which is Mendeley that even I have used. මම master's research කරනකොට මම පාවිච්චි කරේ Mendeley කියන software එක. මම දන්න තරමින් ඒ දවස්වල free තිබුණා. දැනුත් මම හිතන්නේ free තියෙනවා. It's very easy. computer එකට install කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම තමයි ඒකට add-on එකක් තියෙනවා Microsoft Word වලට. ඒක නිසා හරිම ලේසියෙන් Word වල වැඩ කරනකොට අපිට වෙනම tab එකක් open කරලා Mendeley වලට හරි ලේසියෙන් citations include කරගන්න පුළුවන්. reference list එක automatically update වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපි PDF articles පාවිච්චි කරනවා නම් අපිට PDF article drag and drop කරන්න පුළුවන් Mendeley වලට. එතකොට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට යා article එකේ නම author වගේ details automatically ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ගන්නවා. එතකොට අපිට අමුතෙන් type කරන්න දෙයක්වත් නැහැ. There is another software called Zotero. Zotero, I'm not sure if the Zotero is available free, but just have a look. ගිහිල්ලා පොඩක් website එකේ බලන්න. Zotero කියන එකත් referencing tool එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. But it's I would recommend Mendeley. It saves a lot of time. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට වෙලාව ඉතිරි කරනවා Mendeley වලින්. Yes, that's it from me. This is all I wanted to explain. So I just first explain you why the research proposal is important and why you need to give a real commitment to develop a good research proposal. And I discussed some of the tools that you can use when generating research ideas and screening them, how to look into articles, which section should be focused. And then I just gave you a brief idea about basic sections which should be included in your research proposal. Okay, do we have any other questions? If you have anything, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions or use the chat function. I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay, so there was a question, the difference between empirical gap and the practical gap. explain So empirical gap usually is related to the context. Empirical gap context and context gap එක empirical කියලා කියන්නේ data evidence based gap එකක් තමයි empirical gap කියලා කියන්නේ. අපි හිතමු waste disposal behavior. Waste disposal behavior කියන එක අපි හිතමු දැන් අපි හිතමු develop වෙච්ච රටක් ගත්තොත් මෙහෙ හෝ අපි හිතමු ජපාන් හරි ඉම්පක්ක රටක් ගත්තොත් ඒගොල්ලෝ waste dispose කරන ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවා. සමහරවිට කැටගරි කරලා සමහර දේවල් dispose කරන්නේ නැහැ. සමහර දේවල් ඉක්මනට dispose කරනවා. ඒ වගේ behavior එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ලංකාවට ආවන් පස්සේ waste disposal behavior එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉන්දියාවට ගියාන් පස්සේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. සමහර දේවල් අපි තියාගන්නවා, අපි ගොඩක් කල් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. නමුත් මෙහෙ ඒවා ඉක්මනට විසිකරනවා. ඉතින් ඒ ඩිෆරන්ස් එකක් තියෙනවා. එකම දේ ඩිෆරන්ස් එකක් තියෙනවා. So waste disposal behavior කියන එක මෙහෙ ස්ටඩි වෙලා තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් ලංකාවේ ඒක ස්ටඩි වෙලා නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන් සහ අපිට ඒකෙන් ආගියුමන්ට් එක කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේ රටවල waste disposal behavior මෙහෙම අඳුරගෙන තිබුණට ලංකාව වගේ රටවල තියෙන cultural difference එක නිසා waste disposal behavior එක වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක ගැප් එකක්. ඒ knowledge එක තියෙනවා නමුත් ඒක හැම අපිට ලංකාවට apply කරන්න පුළුවන්ද කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙනවා. ඒකට අපි කියන empirical gap එකක් කියලා. practical gap එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ අපිට තියෙන knowledge එක practice එකට යොදවන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක strategies වලට convert කරගන්න පුළුවන් හැකියාවක් තියෙනවාද නැද්ද කියන එක තමයි practical gap එකක්. මම කලින් දීපු example එක Twitter හෝ Facebook හෝ වෙන Instagram වල අපි hashtags පාවිච්චි කරනවා users ලා ඒකෙන් ලොකු network එකක් හැදෙනවා. මේ network එක ඇතුළේ ලොකු ගොඩක් information තියෙනවා users ලගේ behavior ගැන. නමුත් marketing digital marketing කරන අයට හැකියාව නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන් තාම ඒක කොහොමද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ strategies වලට. ඒ gap එකට කියනවා practical gap එකක්. Okay, there is a question. How to find dimensions for independent variable, dependent variable? Can you show us an example? Okay, it's a good question. If you want to, this is related to quantitative studies. If you are doing a quantitative study, you need to find a way to measure the variables. And the thing is, it all depends on your literature review. You identify dimensions, variables, or the relationship between variables through the literature review. You just go through previous studies and see which variables have been used to measure the concept. And not always the variables have dimensions. සමහර variables තියෙනවා අපි ඒවට කියන unidimensional variables කියලා. ඒවට dimensions නැහැ. We use indicators. Items පාවිච්චි කරනවා variable එක measure කරන්න directly. Dimensions නැතු. සමහර වෙලාවලට variable dimension තියෙනවා. Example එකක් තමයි service quality. Service quality කියන එක multi-dimensional variable එකක්. Reliability, empathy, assurance වගේ dimensions පහකින් අපි ඒක measure කරනවා. How to find that is through the literature. You look at previous studies and follow the way that they have done in measuring the concept. If they have used dimensions, we have to use the dimensions. And if they haven't used the dimensions, then you take a variable without the dimension. The same for the independent, same for the dependent variable. You just look at the literature, take the variables, dimensions, the questions that we use to measure the variables, we take all of them from the previous studies. I'll show you an example. So this is I'm just taking my research paper as an example. So in my case, I had this pleasure, arousal, and dominance, 3 independent variables to measure the brand romance, and attitudinal and behavioral loyalty, 2 variables to measure the brand loyalty. All these variables I identified through previous literature based on previous studies. And I do have the questions I used to measure each of these variable. I took all of these questions, the indicators, from previously published studies. So you need to follow the literature. Another question. Variable හොයනකොට abstract එකේදී තියෙන keywords වලින් variable අඳුරගන්න පුළුවන්ද? Independent variable එකට අපි ගන්න topic එකේ. හොඳ question එකක් ඒක. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් paper එකක් research paper එකක් අරගෙන මුළු research paper එකම කියවන්න එපා එක සැරේ. ඉතින්ම abstract එක බලන්න. abstract එකේදී කියනවා මෙන්න මේ variables අපි use කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා usually. abstract එක හරියට කියලා නැත්තම් paper එක skim කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න සමහරවිට diagram එකක් විදියට variables පෙන්නලා තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. table එකක පෙන්නලා තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතෙන්දී ඔයගොල්ලෝ අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ paper එකේ address කරලා තියෙන මෙන්න මේ research variables කියන එක. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට abstract එකේ variables introduce කරලා තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට. recording එක share කරන්න කියලා තියෙනවා. මම හිතන්නේ චතුරිකා මිස් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට share කරයි ඒක. There is another question. How can we measure attributes? What does that mean? Attributes කියලා මොකක්ද අදහස් කරන්නේ එතන? Like attributes as a variable or a question එක පොඩ්ඩක් පුළුවන් නම් explain කරන්න. It's attitudes. How to measure attitudes? It depends. What exactly මෙහෙමයි කියලා කියන්න බෑ. කලින් research අපි බලනවා research වලදී කොහොමද attitudes කියන එක measure කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මම expert කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි area එකේ, but I have come across several studies that had attempted to measure the attitudes. Usually it is like attitude towards something. Attitude towards the technology, attitude towards this and that. So it depends. My suggestion is like follow some key articles. ගොඩක් site වල තියෙන හොඳ articles කීපයක් බලලා ඒකෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට කොහොමද attitudes කියන එක measure කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. Okay, this is a very good question. Why dimensions are important? It's a very, very good question, important question. If you are doing a quantitative research, how do I say? Research is all about investigating something, like measuring something. In quantitative research, we measure certain things. There are certain concepts that have less measurable, observable properties. අපිට දෙයක් measure කරන්න නම් ඒකට observable properties තියෙනවා. Say for example, simple example, once you look at me, ඔයගලන්ට කියන්න පුළුවන් male properties මගේ ළඟ තියෙනවා කියලා. කොණ්ඩේ කොටන කපලා කතා කරන විදිහින් male properties තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ male කෙනෙක් විදිහට observable properties තියෙනවා කියලා. If you look at my phone, you can say this is a phone, it has the screen and everything. It's very important. It's very easy. But there are certain things that have less measurable properties. අපිට measure කරන්න numerically measure කරන්න බැරි සමහර concepts තියෙනවා which are highly abstract. ඒවා අපේ psychological world එකේ තියෙනවා. One simple example would be brand loyalty. Brand loyalty, it's a concept, it's in the conceptual world. So that cannot be numerically measured. අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් brand loyalty එක 1 2 3 4 කියලා එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. That is why we identify specific aspects of the broad variable. අපි ඒක නිසා තමයි broad variable එක කොටස් කීපයකට වෙන් කළ අඳුර ගන්නවා. They are called specific aspects, unique aspects of the broad variable. They are called dimensions. In my previous case, I would say like attitudinal loyalty and behavioral loyalty can be two dimensions of brand loyalty. අපි loyalty පෙන්වන විදි දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි අපේ attitude තියෙන loyal attitudes. අපේ behavior එකෙන් පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් අපි loyal කියලා. මම නැවත නැවත මේ product එක brand එක ගන්නවා. Two aspects of loyalty. Then it is much easier for us to develop items, find out items to measure attitudinal and behavioral loyalty. That's why we need dimensions. So if the concepts, the variables are too broad, vague, that cannot be measured, then it's important for us to find out the dimensions for these variables. Hope I gave the answer. හරි, තව ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. ඉන්ඩිපෙන්ඩන්ට් වේරියබල් එකට variables නැත්තම් ආටිකල් වල ආටිකල් එකේ නෝට් ඩවුන් කරලා තියෙන keywords වලින් අපිට ඒකට variables හදාගන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම තියෙන variables වලට කමක් නැද්ද රිසර්ච් එක ඩෙවලොප් කරන්න? ඕකේ. එහෙමයි පුතේ. අපිට variables හදන්න බෑ. variables හදන්න බෑ. If you want to develop certain variables, it's a different type of research. Usually, maybe grounded theory or qualitative research, you develop certain concepts, then you need to do another mixed method research, develop, conceptualize the variables, develop the measurement, validate it, and it's a long process developing these variables. අපිට එහෙම variables හදන්න බෑ. Independent variable එකට article එකේ variables නැත්තම් කියන එක simple කිව්වොත් අපිට independent variable article එකේ variable නැත්තම් අපිට ඒකට independent variable කියලා කියන්න බෑ. අපේ mind එකේ මොන හරි දෙයක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේක තව දෙයක් මම කියන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ හිතේ තියෙන දේම අපිට research එක කරන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි හොයාගෙන යද්දී අපි බලන්න ඕන අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් level එකට මොන විදියටද variable literature වල අඳුරගෙන තියෙන්නේ කියලා. මම හිතන දේම නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වෙලාවට ඉතින් අපිට පොඩ්ඩක් deviate වෙලා කරන්න පුළුවන් දේ පැත්තට research එක align කර ගන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් article එක ඇතුලේ keywords වලින් මොන හරි කියලා තියෙනවා නම් අපිට හැම variables හදාගන්න බෑ. එකක් ඒක theoretically වැරදි. මොකද ඒව කලින් කරලා validate කරපු variables නොවෙන නිසා. දෙවෙනි එක තමයි එහෙම තියෙන keywords වලින් variable හදාගත්තොත් research එක කරන්න බැරි වෙන්න හේතු කීපයක් තියෙනවා. එතනින් ඉස්සරහට. එකක් තමයි ඒ හදාගන්න අපි හදාගන්න variable වලට අපිට definition එකක් දෙන්න බෑ. මොකද කලින් research වල ඒක define කරලා නැති නිසා. variable එක define කරන්න බෑ කියලා කියන්නේ variable එකට dimension නැත්තේත් නෑ. ඒක measure කරන්න indicators නැත්තේ. ඒක නිසා අපිට research එක කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. ඒ හන්දා හැමතිස්සෙම අපි බලන්න ඕන කලින් research වලදී පාවිච්චි කරලා dimensions තියෙන dimensions develop කරලා සහ විශේෂයෙන් research questions items develop කරලා තියෙන variables research එකට පාවිච්චි කරන්න. ඔයගොල්ලෝ මොකක් හරි research එක කරගෙන යනකොට theory එකක් base කරනවා. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ওই theories වලදී concepts develop කරලා variable define කරලා තියෙනවා. Unless it is a qualitative research. Indicators විදිහට මොනවාද ගන්න ඕනේ? indicator එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ අපි concept එක හෝ dimension එක measure කරන්න පාවිච්චි කරන specific statement. ඔයගොල්ලෝ question එකවල දාන්න statement ඒ statement තමයි indicators කියලා කියන්නේ. ඉතින් indicators විදිහට ගන්න ඕනේ අපි කලින් research වලදී පාවිච්චි කරපු questions. දැන් මගේ research එකේදී මම pressure කියන එක measure කරන්න indicators තුනක් කරන් තියෙනවා. මේ තුනම අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ කලින් research වලදී පාවිච්චි කරපු items. arousal එකට statement හතරක්. මේ හතරම කලින් research වලදී පාවිච්චි කරපු items. ඒක තමයි අපි indicators විදිහට ගන්න. අපිට questions හදන්න බෑ. There is another question. What is the difference between factors and dimensions? These two words, factors and dimensions, we use interchangeably. Usually we use the term dimension when it comes to the literature review and conceptualization of variables and dimensions. That's a theoretical term. And the best of my knowledge, we use the word factor from the analytical perspective. සාමාන්‍ය analysis එකේදී තමයි අපි factors කියන එක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. When doing this exploratory factor analysis, factor loading kind of stuff, we use them during the analysis. Like we are grouping indicators during the exploratory factor analysis, and those groups are called factors. So it's the word, the dimension is more like a theoretical word. Factor is the analytical word. So the dimension can be a factor when it comes to the analysis. Hope I gave the answer. Anything else? If not, we can wind up the session, I guess. So thank you. It was an interesting audience. You are very active. You had so many questions, which is great. Without question, literature can garner dimensions, conceptual framework mention කරන්නේ අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම literature වලින් අපි develop කරන අපි අඳුරගන්න variables සහ literature වල suggest කරලා තියෙනවා independent වෙන්නේ මොනවාද, dependent වෙන්නේ මොනවාද, mediators moderators වෙන්නේ මොනවාද කියලා වෙන්න පුළුවන් මොනවාද කියන එක conceptual framework එකට ගන්නේ ඒ variablesම තමයි. So there should be a link. Problem එකේ කියන දේවල් objective එකේ questions වල තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එතන කියලා තියෙන දේවල් literature review එකේ තියෙනවා. literature review එකේ තියෙන දේවල් research framework hypothesis එකේ තියෙනවා. So it's like a connected thing. questionnaire එකක් develop කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා අහලා තියෙනවා. questionnaire එකක් develop කරන්න ඒක base වෙන්නේ literature review එකෙන් අඳුර ගන්න variables සහ dimensions තියෙනවා. dimensions ඒ dimensions measure කරන්න පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන කලින් research වල පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන indicators. අර මම කලින් පෙන්නුවා වගේ statements අපි හොයා ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ statements තමයි අපි අපේ research questionnaire එකට පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. minor modifications කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපි හිතමු when රටවල පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන වචන වලට අපේ එක වචනයක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. කලින් questions වල අහලා තියෙන්නේ ටෙලිවිෂන් ගැන වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මගේ රිසර්ච් එක කරන්නේ මොබයිල් ෆෝන් ගැන. ඒක නිසා මම ටෙලිවිෂන් කියන වචනේ වල මොබයිල් ෆෝන් කියන වචනේ පාවිච්චි කරනවා. But the statement is the same from the previous studies. එහෙම තමයි research question එකක් develop කරන්නේ. Okay, there is no other question. Okay, there's another question. Can you please arrange a session related to data analysis using SPSS? Let's have a discussion with your lecturers. I'm not an expert data analysis. මම SPSS පාවිච්චි කරලා දැන් අවුරුදු ගානක් වෙනවා.
Marketing department. So we hope to arrange few sessions for the data analysis part as well. So by getting support from another resource person, so hope they can join with that sessions as well, sir.
That is great. Perfect. So problem sorted. Dr. Madhusanka has been here. I didn't say him. One of my good friends, very good friends. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed the session. It's a very interactive audience, and I hope you all will get through the research dissertation, come up with best of the best proposals, and complete your dissertation with flying colors. Maybe in future we might be able to see you all in person, hopefully. So thank you. Have a good time, and thanks for the invitation.
I think today is very important day to us. So I think this is a first time to do a research for all. So today we are learn about how to make a research proposal. So we are coming to the end of our session. So I invite Miss Kavindu to deliver the thank you speech.
Do you have successful journey in life? We need to have the right guidance. So this session you did for us today is similar to that. Firstly, I thankful to head of the department, Dr. JDT Madhushankar, for giving his valuable effort to success this session. And also thank you to Mr. Dilan Ratnayaka for sharing his expertise on research proposal development in the workshop. Your insight and guidance have helped us unlock our research potential. We appreciate your time and effort in helping us develop winning proposals. And grateful to Senior Professor Rohini Samarasinghe Madam to contact Mr. Dilan Ratnayaka, as well as thankful to our other lecturer for support this session successfully. Finally, thank you to all of you who participated this workshop. Thank you.
So again, I'm from department. So on behalf of the marketing management department, I also would like to thank you. So the experience and the knowledge that you have shared is really valuable for our students. With the shared knowledge, I hope that students can prepare a good research proposal, and also not for the proposal, throughout their research journey, they can use this knowledge. So thank you very much again, sir. And as a department, we hope to get your support continuously, and hope you have a good day and good future. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.